Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back for another positive talk. Hopefully, everyone's doing well. I know that I had a really good long walk yesterday, so waking up today, I was expecting my body to really hate me, but it actually feels really good. So, in a great mood. Got another positive talk this evening. Really late for me, but she'll be in Australia. So we've got to cater to our time differences. So we went for late for me and earlier for her. So super excited about that positive talk. Excited about this one as well. So we will go ahead and get started. Let's see if I can find him. Hello.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me? I know that we talked about audio.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
I'm gonna scoot back so I'm actually in the frame. How's your day going so far?
So far, so good. A little rainy, but just lets you stay inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's super hot here. So yesterday, like, I was sweating so much just stepping a couple feet out the door. And I was like, okay, we've got a huge hike coming on, so this can't happen. So I will let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can jump into a discussion.
Okay. My name's Ken Rapino, and I am the executive director of Wolfman Productions in beautiful rural Appomattox, Virginia.
I mean, I just drove through there to get here to Richmond, so I absolutely love that place. And I've only actually been there once, and it was for like a Halloween themed thing where they kind of took us into the back of the woods and let us like wander back to our cars. So absolutely love it
And
out there.
that was us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I remember I had just watched like the American Horror Story stuff with like the pig mask. I think it was the Roanoke season, and then like my friends and I are sitting there in the back trailer on the hay, and then like this pig mask thing comes running up at us. Like I nearly died.
We
They're
picked
like,
top 30 most haunted places in Virginia.
I mean, it was absolutely amazing. I was like looking forward to doing it again, but I couldn't get any of my friends to go out with me, and I was like, oh, I can't do it by myself. That's
And
definitely not something I would do by myself.
yeah, no,
Also,
definitely a group activity. And part of the fun of the ghost tour is like watching your friends get scared. That's what I like about it.
yeah. So when it comes to, because I know that you said that you kind of went from theater from New York to Virginia. I mean, I've always loved the theater. I went from doing it in high school to college, and then my degree in architecture became so overwhelming that I wasn't able to continue doing theater. But I think that that's such an amazing thing to still be able to get to be a part of because it's so much fun. So how has that been your journey so far?
It wasn't my original journey. So I did theater in high school, and then I went to college, but my parents kind of talked me into, well, you have to have a real job, you know. And so I actually went and got a degree in marketing, and through that, I friends with people who are in the theater department, and they kind of pulled me in, and I started auditioning for things around Boston. I went to school in Boston, and started booking stuff, and then it kind of just kept spiraling. So I've been very fortunate there. And then I met Dustin Williams, who is my now husband, but then was just some stranger who came to my bar, and he was like, "Hey, I run this theater company in Virginia. You should, come down and do a show." And then the rest is history.
I love that. That's one of the stories for like the storybooks,
Yeah.
getting someone from the city to come down to Virginia and do theater.
And I remember the first time I got here, I was like, "Bye, I'm not staying here." And if you could have told me then where I would be now, I would never have believed you. But I'm really happy. I don't know if I would do it another way. And
Yeah.
crazy is the pandemic is kind of what did it, because I held on to this like gut feeling for so long, being like the only way to be successful in our industry is if you're in California or New York. And I learned very quickly that is not true. You can create literally anywhere, and it's much cheaper to create in Virginia than it is in New York. So, yeah, it's been a really enlightening couple of years, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing shows in New York, but I've also seen a lot of local stuff here in Virginia. Waynesboro has their own theater over there, and I've seen a couple of their shows, and I was blown away by like the talent that exists everywhere. And it's like I'm a country boy, so I grew up in Virginia. So the idea of moving to a city, of course, like for a lot of the things I wanted to do, I was like, I'm gonna have to move to do this. And I started to realize that anywhere you go, if something doesn't already exist and no one else is creating it, you can start it and people will come because you're not the only person who wants to see something like that exist. And when you've got someone brave enough to start it and they can collect a few people, like it's crazy how quickly something like that can grow.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And we've been saying that to our friends too in New York, who are, again, the pandemic, man, it made you like reconsider a lot of things. And, even outside of our industry, like just whatever you're passionate about, there's a need. And I feel like I was a young gay in a small town right outside of Boston, and my gut my whole life was get out of here. And I thought the only place I could go was the city. And now I would like to think the world is different, and there's just not the same. You can be successful no matter where you are, doing whatever you want. Um, you just got to have the drive, the work ethic, you know what I mean, to make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean the idea that you went to school for marketing, like that can be a helpful trait to have in a theater to kind of market the theater for people to know of its existence. I know that you all just did the Into the Woods, which I like. I remember it coming out like on movie. I didn't see it in a show anywhere, but I fell in love with all the songs. And when I saw that you all were doing that, I was like, oh, there's so many good like songs in this. And when I was in Harrisonburg, Waynesboro put on the musical Bear, which like amazing musical. Never would have expected that to be something that Waynesboro would put on because like you don't like it's a very LGBT themed, very heavy play. And I was just like, wow, this is beautiful. And I wish that there was like a professional recording of that play because the way that those actors and actresses sang those songs, I liked it so much more than the ones that are like you can buy on iTunes to listen to. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had like a recording of all of those.
It's funny that you say Bear too, because that's the show that Dustin told me to come down and do. And the way he pitched it was, um, for our area, it's going to be impactful, for the people who see it. And we did that show in Lynchburg, which is where Liberty University is. And it was amazing the response that it got, for people who just like, I don't have anywhere to go around here. You guys gave us something that like I feel represented. I don't feel judged. I feel safe. That was huge. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but if you had told me then what I know now, now Lynchburg has a pride parade, like a pride event. Like it's just come so far, and people are just, um, growing, I guess. Is that
Yeah.
fair? Growing. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
It's definitely like I grew up in the shadow of Liberty University, so like I very much heard all the things that people said about LGBT people coming from that university, and I was very thankful that I moved away because I think that I had a very, very strong connection to all my friends that were there. and the opinions that people had, I had to leave so that I could gain a better opinion of myself and my identity. But when I came back, I was blown away by the progress that everyone has had in this area. And I think it was 2019 that was the first Pride in Lynchburg. I
Yeah.
think it was right before the pandemic started, and it was like, oh, we can't
And
have a second one yet.
so many people went, and the thing that I loved was so many families went. Like people brought their kids to be like, love is love, like just and to be, yeah. I feel like the best thing to happen to this area is taking his thumb off of everyone because suddenly people can breathe and be themselves. Like I remember when hearing stories from Bear, of kids who were outed at school or their parents sent them there to be fixed, and it's not really the same, I hope. I mean, I'm sure it still happens, but that there's at least avenues that are safe for now. So
Yeah.
if I bring anything to this area, I hope Lynchburg, I hope that Wolf Bank can be a place where people can be like, I don't really necessarily fit over here, but I know that I fit here. And that's so, I wish I had that when I was young. So important.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to escape and find others online that you can relate to, but to have a community kind of show that they're there, because I think there are a lot more open-minded people than we think exist, because we automatically stereotype closed-minded, rural, conservative people to have an opinion about LGBT people. But until we create a space where people can kind of share their thoughts, we don't know. And I know that during the 2020 election, I wore like my Joe Biden shirt saying that was the candidate I was choosing. And honestly, I was nervous to go out anywhere. I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna get lots of hate. And I was actually blown away by the amount of people that came up and they'd like give me a fist bump and they're like, good luck. And I was just like, oh, so I'm not completely surrounded by people who hate Joe Biden. And I was actually very blown away that in that election, Lynchburg actually went blue. And I was like, okay, like stepping it up. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, I think people just need a chance. And I remember even, I think it was a like Obama cycle where they were encouraging people to come out. And I remember thinking that stranger danger, like don't push people into coming out. But I'm gonna tell you right now, like the number one thing that people say to Dustin and I is they're just like, my son is gay, my daughter is gay, like you guys being here, being business owners, representing, being married, like it's changing people's perspective because we're not scary if we're like right in your face. You know what I mean? And I think it does make a huge difference. And if you're watching and you're not out, obviously you have to do it when you feel safe and you're comfortable. But the quickest way to change somebody's heart is to be like, this is real for them, you know?
Yeah.
It's
And
easy to hate something you don't know, you know?
yeah, and it's kind of nice to have mentors and other people walking around as examples because parents can come to us and ask those questions versus trying to get a younger child to answer questions that, I mean, if you had asked me at 13, like I wouldn't had any answers for you. I wouldn't have been able to tell you why I'm gay. I don't know. It happened.
I don't know.
It must have been the theater. It got me.
Yeah, you know, that's how they get
It,
you.
it happens. So when it comes to, because I think that this is a beautiful thing to be able to have in Appomattox, Virginia, and I know that Stanton and that side of the mountain has had like Shenandoah Pride for a while. Like, what are some things that you would like to see kind of grow from this and kind of, I mean, we've got plenty of other rural areas that still need some rainbow into their equations to kind of help other places because Lynchburg's still pretty far for some people to drive, but I mean, I'm here in Richmond now. There's Charlottesville that's kind of liberal for the most part.
Yeah.
But what are some things that you'd like to kind of see spread throughout some, and I mean, all the other states that exist too that are still very scary when it comes to LGBT?
I would say I would even go so far as to say not just LGBT plus, but anybody who feels other. I
Yeah,
think that it's very easy in a rural community to kind of be pushed into, all this. Am I allowed to swear?
go for it.
About grooming, and you walk into a rural community for 5 minutes and you know who the groomers are because they tell you this is what you do. It's just very different, and I feel like it's very easy to feel boxed into something, and then when you realize you don't fit into the box, and I'm, again, not talking just about LGBT, like if you realize that you like different things or you question things that are the norm in your area, like you just need that outlet. And I would love to see those safe spots continue to grow around the country. Yeah, I mean, people, when we started Wolfbane, or when we started really making Wolfbane a business, business owners came up to us and were like, good luck, it's not going to happen around here.
Yeah.
I think they underestimated how many people get boxed out when you're forcing them to believe a certain thing. And I don't know. It's been nice to be that outlet for a lot of people and have people come up to us and say like, "Oh my God, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this." Um, it's important. You'll get to live one time. Do what you like, not what everyone tells you to like. So that's my message. That's my soapbox.
I love that. I think that you're right. There are a lot of people who feel like they aren't allowed to chase the things that they want to chase because society has this checklist of things that you need to check off or be to be accepted. And I definitely think that the next generation under us is doing an amazing job of just saying, you know what, to hell with the checklists. We're going to be who we want to be. And I mean, going back to like the high school that I went to and just kind of seeing, because I remember there were maybe a couple people that were out when I was there. And now just knowing that, because I still am very connected with a lot of my teachers from there. And to hear they're like, yeah, I'd say a good like 25% of people like don't identify as straight. And I was like, wow, that's growth, and you love seeing that because that means that these people are feeling safer in their communities to not pretend to be something that they're not. And I think that that shows a lot of growth in rural areas. I think that I personally love it because I didn't feel like when I moved to the city that that was where I should be. I didn't feel like, wow, I love it here. I was like, man, I miss the country and I miss being able to just like rent a kayak and just go out into the mountains. And being in the city, that's not what I was getting. And I just kind of felt out of place, but it was where I was safe. And my safety came first. And I don't think that that should ever be an either or type of situation.
I think that's an absolutely perfect way to describe it. You are you kind of feel like you have to go to a city, and then but you're still giving up a part of yourself, but you're in a safer place. I don't know. Again, the pandemic, I hope people realize that they can go home and there are things for them. I hope that they can go to a home, that there's things for them to do. If you're in our area, check us out, because I don't want you to be somewhere you don't want to be. You have to be yourself. Like you have, I don't know. It's messy. It's all messy.
Yeah, I mean, it's the world we live in a lot of ways. I see a lot of beautiful progress in a lot of other ways. I see us going backwards. That scares me a little bit to see certain things being voted upon that I thought we had already overcome and won. So it's people like you that are willing to be in the rural areas and create a space, because I always tell people like we can't all run to the cities and expect change to happen. When it comes to votes, when it comes to who gets elected, like each county has its own little votes. And if we all run to the city, our cities have that one vote, and then all those little red counties have their vote. And it's like, we can't run away from it and expect change. I'm not saying you have to fight and be in everyone's face and be like, love us, we're gay, love us. But you can exist and just be yourself and show
What
people that we're normal.
If you don't like it, mind your business. Like, telling you, you don't like gay marriage, then don't get gay married. Like, it's not hard. Like, I think Dustin is one of my biggest supporters, my husband, and we were going through some of it, like, because I write a lot, and I have a bajillion projects that I actually shelved because I was like, you know what, these aren't really topical anymore. We're kind of in the Schitt's Creek world now versus the I don't think of an older gay, like even the beginning of Will and Grace, and they're in the city. Like we're just in a happier, everyone's accepted. We like that content. We need that content. And so I was like, oh, kind of some of my stuff's kind of dated. And then you hear in the news when they're like arresting all those guys in Idaho who are going to go, crash that pride parade with violent intent, and then like all the bills that are passing. Like it's just like maybe they're not irrelevant. Like I want them to be irrelevant, but things keep cycling back and forth, and I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we create a bubble for ourselves. So as LGBT people, I think we definitely all start off on this journey very much alone, trying to figure ourselves out so that we can explain to the people around us how we feel, who we are. And then as we start to push out all of those people that don't accept us and love us for who we are, we start to become more surrounded by people who support and love, and then they pull in their people. So it becomes this like bubble of like acceptance and understanding that we're like, wow, things are getting better. And then and algorithms of the internet don't help that, because people who think differently than us never show up in our feed anyway. So we don't see it until the news kind of starts putting it in our faces. And even then, like, most of us don't get our news from those sources that share that anymore. And it's just kind of stepping out of your comfort zone every so often to see that there are still plenty of people. I had one of my friends tell me there are tons of TikToks out there that are very anti-LGBT. And I was just blown away, because I was just talking about how I feel like that platform is such an accepting place. It's just that algorithm will never come into my like viewing point. And I was like, oh, there are literally like 15-year-old people like really bashing our community on a platform. And because their following isn't LGBT, no one's reporting it. They've got a crowd of people in their bubble that are very gung-ho and supportive of their message. And I was like blown away that that's something that kind of exists. And we just got to keep our eyes open.
The only solace you can take from something like that is probably a lot of those people will end up in our community at some point and just hate each other right now, or hate themselves right now. I try really hard to be open to that. Like, it's just really hard. It's just really hard. Because, like, you want to be supportive, but at the same time, you're like, oh, you have so much growing up to do, and I hope that you do it in a safe way. You're headed down a really dark path before you get back over here. So
yeah, I mean, I chose to put myself out there in ways because I don't believe that people who are against our rights are ever going to show up for my positive talks. I don't think they're ever going to like go see a movie or go to Netflix and watch the shows that are LGBT. I put myself where they're at. So I've gone to churches here in Virginia and North Carolina, and I've told my story, and I allow people to ask me questions. And in so many different ways, I've realized it's just, they've got an idea of who we are, and it's so far not who we are that they're scared to death. And in a lot of situations as well, the fear of them like looking evil, the fear of them like looking stupid, like there's a lot of fear between us and the people that are going against LGBT equality. And I learned that sometimes if you just put yourself there and you're like, you know what, I'm strong enough, I've got enough support, I've got enough protection to where I can put myself here and kind of open some people's eyes, even if it's planting seeds. Like, I've realized that it's a lot easier to mend the things that we see are broken and disconnected than we usually think when we hear because a lot of times we hear the really, really loud people, not realizing that there are some people over here that are just looking for that connection that will pull them right over. And it's just getting to them and making them an ally. Because I've always told people I would rather have lots of like allies that don't really know all the right verbiage, but will be there when an LGBT person needs an ally to stand up for them. Like, they don't have to be perfect. I just need them to exist so that there's some safety, because there's a lot of space between the cities that LGBT people travel through that, like, there have been plenty of times I stop at a gas station and I see the Confederate flag and a bunch of really big guys, and I'm like, maybe I'll stop at the next gas station. I don't know if this one's the best one for me to pull up jamming to Broadway music.
I think that's amazing that you do that, that you allow yourself to meet them where they live. I think that that's so important, and it's so hard sometimes to listen to people who you're just your eyes burn from in your head, but it is important, and it's hard to remind yourself too that it's important to give them some grace and some learning time. And I mean, let's be real, if all of us shut out all the people who are anti-gay in our life and didn't give them a chance to grow, we'd all be pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do the same thing that a lot of other people do, where it's like, oh, well, the people in my life are different than those people over there. But when you start to see them as all of those people are just like the people in your life, and they probably have someone that is different, that feels other, that's not like strong enough to stand up for themselves at the moment. Like, if you start to create that space for even people outside of your own circle, you'll start to realize, hey, that screaming lady over there is someone's grandmother, someone's mom, someone's like sibling. And oh, that's a teacher from a school. Oh, that's a person over here that works at the local grocery store who knows everybody. Like, you start to see them as people and less like monsters, because that's the same thing that they see us as. They
Yeah.
see us as monsters that are this huge problem. But then once you see them as a person, you stop and go, oh, you're nothing like this monster I created.
I'd still rather be on the side that accepts everybody, but yeah, all right. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's better to lean on the side of, I don't understand you, but I can still respect you as a human, than you're awful. So, or you're going to hell. That's a good one around here. All right.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting, and you sometimes it just takes a special occasion where someone bumps into someone and you change their mind. And I, I wish there was like a quick fix for it. Like, oh, all we need to do is put it in the history books and teach it in schools. There's such a pushback between that happening, and it's just like normalizing it and just putting it as many places as we can. It will help people realize that more likely they have tons of people in their lives that have some secrets that they don't tell them just because they're not comfortable. I know that I try to make sure when I make statements that I never generalize or make broad judgments of people, because you never know if the person sitting right next to you will be offended or identifies with this thing you are being judgmental of. And it's just being smart. And I hope that I'm the type of person, I know that my closer friends can call me out, but I hope I'm the type of person where someone feels like I've made a statement that they'll point it out to me so I can fix it. Because I think that we all naturally, because our brains are kind of cavemen in their own way, like, we generalize things for our own safety. And sometimes that generalizing really kind of wipes people off the table that maybe we should take some time and get to know first.
But you're also coming from a place of experience. Like, I feel like it's easy to generalize a group that associates, again, this works both ways, to generalize a group that you have felt either trauma from or not accepted by. And yeah, like you said, you have to remind yourself that's not everybody. It might, cover some of those people, but it's not everybody. I would say personally, in my life, I'm not religious in any way. And that is because of the trauma that I have felt from religion. Now, my dad is incredibly religious, and I think that and accepts me and loves me and my husband. And he was able to separate himself from, okay, well, this is what the church says. This is how I feel. And so I think he's been an inspiration to me to be like, okay, it's not everybody in religion who will write you off. And I know there's different denominations. I happen to be Catholic. It's kind of cut and dry as far as the Catholic Church is concerned. So it's definitely been interesting. I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of roundtables that I think can still happen to try to understand how, why, what makes everybody tick. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that we all have like a special someone that can help us see things more clear. So to one person's parent, I might just be a rambling gay person on the internet that they tune out. They put their little earplugs in and they're like, well, just let him move his mouth. I don't have to hear it. But then their child comes out and now it's someone that they love and it's someone that they care about. And even though there's a lot of confusion there and a lot of times there are very hurtful things said in those moments because there's a lot of misunderstanding in that process, but when it's someone you love, it's no longer a rambling gay person that you don't want to hear. It's, oh my gosh, like this is someone that I love. And
like if I were a parent who was struggling because my child was coming out, I would like to know, we can't control the internet, we know that. I would like to know that there are places in those spaces and positive role models out there to help my child navigate a world that I don't really know about, or for me to go and have resources. I'm gonna tell you right now, what I have a question for you. Do you think that how do you think you would have done now when you started your like coming out journey? Do you think all this internet would have been overwhelming, like all of these resources, or do you think it would have been better?
I definitely think it would have been better because I sought out people who were the same to understand me because I didn't understand me at all. And the people that I'm now friends with them, but when I first met them, the LGBT community isn't always welcoming. And the resources I found were gay people who were very out. And I didn't want them to out me. I just wanted someone to talk to. But finding those people there weren't huge LGBT groups on campuses that were super open and welcoming. I was just trying to find other LGBT people. And I think because we're traumatized, a lot of people are like, well, you don't get to be in the closet and be gay and not face the same traumas that I face. Like, if you want to be gay, you're going to face this with me. And I was just like, oh, please no, don't do that.
A little bit of that. I like to think that the reason that our generation of gay has all the trauma is because we lost a generation. The generation that was supposed to teach us what to do, we lost. So I hope that I'm being a positive influence to the next generation because we are the new lost generation. Like we owe it to them to be good examples. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, but like, be kind to each other, help each other. We are a community, whether you like it or not. We're the LGBT community, and that can be beautiful. That can be support and love when you need it and don't even realize you need it. Like,
yeah.
I just hope that we're doing what we can do. We are the pre-internet, post-Reagan generation.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many content creators out there creating stuff that they wish they had when they were first coming out. So like those are resources now that people have full access to, and the internet has tried many ways to like get that stuff off the internet or at least have it behind walls, and the LGBT community has still found ways to create spaces where people can educate themselves. And I mean, I still watch YouTube videos now, and I go to LGBT events, and my mind is blown by all the information I didn't know. So I'm always learning, and I think that that's a beautiful thing that we now have access to.
Activity of like we lost a lot because of the 80s and 90s. Like think of the art and the just think of where we would be if we hadn't lost all those people. Like I don't know. I think that we're on a path that as dark as sometimes the world can seem. I think we're on the path to something really beautiful, and I think you're right. Strength and confidence that younger people have now that I couldn't even dream to reach in my 20s. Like I just it's amazing, and I'm excited to see what they do. I don't understand them. I don't understand TikTok or any of that. I'm too old, but I can appreciate talent when I see it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think also where we are creating space for our generation and the ones to come, we've also opened the door for the ones that are still around from when we were kids to start sharing their stories as well. I think that that is a beautiful thing because the stories need to be told because we are where we are today because even the ones that didn't make it to now, they fought hard for equality in ways that like made it to where we could get on alive in front of we don't know who and just share our story without fearing that we're going to lose our job because of it, or we're going to just be in a situation where we're not safe if we walk outside at too late at night. And it's just important to realize that even though they're not here to share their stories, like their stories created the present time that we are currently living in.
But again, and I know you know this because you already said it, but it's not a monolith. Like, so we are fortunate to have that, but even still now, people don't have that safety. So I think it's important as a community to be open and understand that everyone's journey to get where they are today is different. And you don't know what they're going through. And don't be frustrated if someone you know isn't coming out. You don't know why. There's a million reasons why. Like, so just be patient. Maybe that's what my message is. Just be patient. Like, be
Yeah.
nice, understanding, empathetic. Let's be the empathetic community because Lord knows we need that in this country. So,
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't know if you ever jumped into the clubhouse realm of things, but that was like a great gathering place during the pandemic when none of us could like see each other in person. But that was a global platform where people came on and we were able to talk. And that's when I really started to see how our community, we were judging each other too harshly because a lot of times we assume that everyone has the same knowledge as we do. And in a lot of cases, like people are coming into spaces where they're not as educated or not as far along on their journey. And we can't just jump down their throats and attack each other for not being as well educated in, I mean, it's not taught in school, so it's not like everyone has access to that information. And the internet only shows us what you know how to search for. So being more forgiving, because a trans person in Virginia in the more rural areas is different than a trans person in the cities where there's a lot more access, a lot more understanding. And because I talked about like LGBT groups here in Virginia versus LGBT groups in the city. And in a lot of their cases, there are so many people, you can be like, okay, we are the Black trans people who love theater. That can be 50 people in a city. In rural Virginia, there's not enough trans people to have a trans group. So the LGBTQIA plus, we all stick together and we all educate and learn together. And I was blown away by like how we can start dividing ourselves as a community. But then in more rural areas, we can't divide ourselves in that way because we would all be standing at our own club by ourselves, no one else beside us. And it was kind of eye-opening to kind of see how different it is. And then you take it to other countries and it's even more different. And it's just like, we have to be better at just being empathetic to the idea that what we know is just our version. There are a million other versions out there, and we have to love and accept all of them.
And to jump on that, stop attacking gay art. Like, okay, so if a movie comes out and you don't like it, suck it up, Buttercup, because like, you don't know who's watching it who needed to watch that movie or TV show or whatever. Gays are so mean to each other sometimes when it comes to like art, and like, okay, fine, I'm sure whatever you watched was flawed, but think about when we were kids, those movies didn't even exist. So like, now you've got this opportunity to have a new generation have the resources they need to learn. Like, just be nice. Just be nice. Like, it kind of breaks my heart when like a new movie comes out with like gay protagonists and it just gets, the gay community is the one that rips it to shreds. And it's like, you don't know who needed to see that movie. You know what I mean? And what it did for them. Like, and just that it exists. Think of what Drag Race did. There are drag shows in Lynchburg, Virginia now. That would never happen. Never have happened just a few years ago. Like, representation is so important. Don't knock it. Support it, or if you think you can do better so that the next people can see it. Like, that's my other thing.
I was literally having that conversation yesterday where I was just like, we very much attack. I mean, I remember when Taylor Swift put out her music video, and I didn't see very many positive things from anyone in the LGBT community. And she put in like RuPaul, she put in the cast from Queer Eye, she put in a lot of content creators from YouTube into that music video. And all I heard was criticism. And I was just like, that's beautiful. Cause like, she didn't have to.
And for her for that, like that takes risk too. Like
I think that it's important for people to realize that we've got to let this stuff exist in all the realms and stop destroying it, because if a company starts to face negative repercussions for being supportive, next year they don't have to do it. And we're living in a time where all the things are being voted upon, all the people are looking for representation, and yeah, we need it as many places as possible, because like, not every gay person's dream is to become a drag queen. Not every gay person wants to be in the theater. Some want to be doctors, some want to be lawyers, some want to be school teachers. We need all of the representation so that people are creating safety bubbles as in many places as possible, because at the end of the day, like, you have to realize that the people who are being supportive and aren't perfect, aren't doing it exactly the way you want to, could do the opposite. They could be like anti-LGBT, and we don't need that.
Not all allies are perfect. Like, we have to remember, if they're trying, you have to show them some grace. Not all allies are perfect. But help. If they say something imperfect, don't get mad at them. Educate them. Like, we all have a lot of work to do, and it's happening. It's happening, but it's just, we just have to remember grace. Show some grace.
Yeah.
You need grace, so show it to other people too.
Yeah. I tell people, like, this is with relationships too. I think in general, we are so critical of everything around us that we forget that we need to tell people, like, good job. Like, tell someone, say, hey, like, that's a really good job what you did. Thank you so much for the support. Have you thought of possibly doing this to where it would be even more inclusive, where it would be like even more accurate to the experience that a lot of queer people understand? And just thanking and giving ideas instead of destroying it and saying you need to start completely over. Because yeah, Love, Simon, for me, wasn't a very accurate storyline for how my experience came, but I was touched that it was created, and listening to other people's experience of it I was glad it came into existence because I went to see it in Lynchburg. I was living in Lynchburg at the time, and listening to the audience talk about it afterwards, I was just like blown away. Like I got chill bumps hearing like dads that I would have never thought would ever say some of the things that they said. I was just like, wow. So that got through the cracks. That touched something to get them thinking in a different way. And I was just like, okay, that's progress. It's a cute love story. It didn't feel very accurate to mine, but you know what? Maybe someone will.
So somebody's story, and if it's somebody's story, it's somebody else's story, you know. So, but then then you write down your story, and somebody else will connect with you. Like I just feel like there doesn't have to be a specific way we tell gay stories. I love. First of all, I'm a huge British Bake Off fan. Okay. I think so fun to watch, so hard. Like I love watching them help each other. Anyway. So to have the Schitt's Creek version of gay was beautiful too, because they never really address it. It is what it is, and everyone in town, in this small town, just accepts it. And that could have gone in different ways. But it's also important to just normalize gay. So yes, of course, that might not be everyone's story, unfortunately. I wish it was everyone's story. But it's just, yeah. Tell everyone's story, because there's a million different ways to tell it, and someone will connect with any way that so
yeah, I think that was one of the things that I really love. I didn't watch Schitt's Creek when it first came out because the word shit was in it, and I was just like, I don't really like the farting type humor, like the name shit. I was like, probably not something I would enjoy. But I saw a post that someone shared where they're like, we need to thank the Roses for getting us through the pandemic. And I was like, who are these people? And I probably watched 3 episodes and I was hooked. I fell in love with all of the characters. And I've had lots of conversations with people where they're like, my family loves Schitt's Creek. And that's how I started to talk to them about gay people, because David's impossible not to love. And seeing him and Patrick fall in love, and then even having David not fully have an identity, he doesn't identify as gay. He kind of is just like on the spectrum. And then having just Stevie there for him, and it was just having all of that so normalized for people. Like, that was a small town where we all existed at one point.
Sometimes I like red wine, and sometimes I like a rosé. It's the perfect way to say it, and it's like, yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and just to like kind of have it, you see like Alexis's relationship and then you see David's relationship, and it's not othered or different. It's just like they're both having struggles. They both exist in that realm. And it's just kind of cool to kind of see the parents don't act any different either, or the city, like citizens, don't act different. And I think that that's a great way to tell a story. I think I want to see more characters replaced in other films and things that where their sexual orientation doesn't matter. Like, don't say, oh, okay, George Washington was this. Don't change someone's story. But for the characters that don't need a specific gender, don't need a specific race, orientation, throw some in there. Normalize it to where you don't even have to say it at one point. Like, just that existence can kind of be there. And I think that that will start to kind of create some space that people didn't even know was needed.
Yep, I agree with you 100%.
Because, like, theater does it all the time. Like, I love that. Like, where you go into a theater and, like, there are brothers and sisters, but, like, you were completely like, okay, well, this person is black, this person is white. But in theater, they're playing brother and sister because they auditioned for the role. They were phenomenal. And that's okay.
If you tell the audience these are brother and sister, you just go with it. You know what I mean? Like, but that goes to what you were saying about normalizing. Like, why do you question it? They just told you they're brother and sister. That's it. Like, it's powerful. It's important. And I know that people for some reason have turned that into a weapon, but like representation matters because it will change people's hearts and minds because you're normalizing something that for us is already normal, but it extends it in a safe, digestible way to people who might be struggling with it.
Yeah. And I think breaking down all walls of what is considered normal and just be like, well, if someone says that's who they are, then that's okay. That's normal. Like,
And it's
there's
not
no standard. There's no standard for normal. And if we can break down those walls, then, I mean, because it's everywhere. Like, it's so woven into everything. Like, we have to do better at, like, getting rid of it. I mean, you walk into a store and walk down the aisle, and you can be like, oh, that's the women's aisle. Why? Why is it the women's aisle? Because we've made it that. And it's just like, put it all together. It doesn't need to be separate. It makes everyone's life a little less like, I had my friends tell me that when she was young, she used to want to buy boy clothes, but to try to get her mom to take her over there, her mom was just like, nope, staying over here with the little pink, purple girl clothes. And it's like, if you just mixed it all together, like everyone could kind of pick what they feel like aligns with their identity and who they are at that moment. We all change and just make it easier because like, yeah, there's big signs on the ceiling that says boys, and we make it very obvious that that's what we think boys should be. And there have been plenty of times I've gotten something and I'm like, oh, I love this. And then I notice the zippers on the other side. And I'm like, oh, this was definitely made for a woman because the zipper goes different.
But I think we also need to provide a safe place for those parents to be like, I don't understand. Or just like, well, I don't want my son in a girl's outfit because I know how cruel people can be. But we need to help them. Like, I feel like, again, extend your allies grace. Like, we can't change anything, just get angry. Why wouldn't you buy your son a dress? It's not that simple. Like there could be a lot of reasons. So we have to provide them a place of understanding where we can be like, this is why you have to do that. Or this is why you should do that for them. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know if you've watched Grey's Anatomy, but my friend Meg got me to watch it again, and they take characters that they've made you love and they give them closed-minded views so that someone can educate them. And I think that that's a beautiful way to kind of do that, because there was a doctor there who her child was wearing like girls' clothes, like it was an Elsa costume. And she really just wanted her child to be like, I'm gay, I like girl clothes. Like she felt like she needed the child to be like, okay, you need to tell us now what you want to be. And someone was also gay in the hospital who was a resident, and they're like, just let them be, like let them exist. They don't need to be defined by something. Just let them pick what they want. And you could see the frustration in that character, but you saw her grow because she became educated. And I think that doing that, like I saw Station 19 and Grey's Anatomy do a phenomenal job, I think, at showing the frustration of like the Black Lives Matter movement and the ignorance that exists in the white community when it comes to struggles of people who aren't white. And I thought they did a beautiful job of showing ignorance, because we are ignorant to things that we are not a part of when it comes to struggles. And I was like, wow, they're creating a space for conversation, because like if they're not open to the idea, at least they're kind of seeing other people's struggles.
Yep.
And that's like the art of like theater and performers and people who write scripts. Like we have the power to kind of write that in there. And I personally, I've been working on a children's book that I want it to be to where a conservative family isn't going to be like, nope, you're not reading that. But I want it to be a book that educates the parents in a way, but also it just normalizes it in the kids' eyes to where growing up, it's just normal. It's not something that they have to like question. It's just like, it's normal. That's fine.
Yes.
Huh?
Are you allowed to say the premise of your book?
Yeah, so I'm Native American, so for me, we were given like totems or spirit animals, and mine was the mountain lion, which is why my logo is like the mountain lion with the rainbow. So he is going to be an imagination, like imaginary character for me, the character, and then all of my friends will also have their own, and it's going to kind of follow through with the struggles of internal thought. So like things that kids think they don't have any confirmation from the outside world, and this little imaginary animals are going to kind of connect kids and share the story to where the animals will have conversations with each other and actually explain what the kid is struggling with understanding. So it's going to kind of be a journey for multiple different things. And I've got friends that will be representative of different things that I think children struggle with so that they can educate people on how to have those conversations in a way that's kid friendly, because I think that's what everyone's scared of is like we think that we're going to give college level information to a 5-year old. That's not the case. Like LGBT can be taught in a way that's friendly, just like we don't show people like True Blood or Vampire Diaries to a 5-year old. But there's vampire books for kids. There's ways to explain everything in a way that is kid friendly, and I think that that's what people need to understand.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it does help. It does help parents too, because it slowly gets into their psyche as well.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing that people, because I've spoken to people who have kids who have said that they're not comfortable with their kids knowing about LGBT because they don't want to have to explain the sex. And I'm like, why does it have to be about sex? Like LGBT, we're not just sex, like we're humans. And I was like, I think that
You have
they
to
don't
explain.
understand. I knew I was gay before I ever wanted to have sex. I didn't know how to identify it and explain it to someone, but I knew from a very young age that I identified with girls more with the things that they like to play with and do. And it made me feel horrible. It made me feel judged because I didn't feel closer to the guys that wanted to play rough and do the things that other little boys did. But it was just like interesting because there's so many different things that, I mean, I always tell people when it comes to little kids, they are so confused by the things that we've told them. This is what little boys do. This is what little girls do. Because there are so many people who are like, I'm a Tom girl because I like playing with trucks and I like doing this, but that's what boys do. And I'm like, or you're just a little girl that likes to play with trucks. Like, that's okay. Or you're a little boy who likes to play with dolls instead of trucks. That's okay. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that's what you like to play with. But at some point, we're told it's wrong, and that starts to like sit on us as children. That develops into so many different other traumas. And I'm like, we've just got to normalize things being different and it being okay.
Yep, I agree. And we're getting there. We're getting there. It's changing, but we just
Yeah,
do our part and make sure that we're supportive and loving each other. That's all.
yeah. So I see that we're getting close to the end of the hour. So are there anything that you can share with what's coming in the future for you and your company in Appomattox to where people can get some excitement, help you all bring more people out there? Because I know that I got reached out to at one point to come out and see the show. And the weekend that I was up here, it was like a monsoon of a storm. I know that you guys are outdoor, right? So storms and like that can kind of change what time the show is playing and stuff.
We have more immediately. We have 2 more weekends of Into the Woods, which is in the woods, which is really fun. So we have this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then next weekend. But the reason that Dustin chose the name Wolfbane Productions is because we want to be able to branch out and do more than just theater. So we have a bunch of special events. We do a Ren Fair every year because no one in our area even tries to do fantasy or cosplay or Renaissance. So we wanted to be able to provide that for people. Um, and just, yeah, keep an eye on our website, wolfbane.org, because supporting the events and supporting the shows will directly go to impacting our advocacy programs. For example, we started an organization called the Feminine Project, and they collect feminine project products for women who need it. So it's providing women with what they need when they need it, so that there's no stigma. So they work with a lot of schools and pantries to make sure that those supplies are stocked, because they're expensive, and a lot of the times people get, they donate food, but there's more. Like, we need more essentials. So they have been killing it in Appomattox, making sure that the schools have what they need. And yeah. So yeah, basically supporting the company supports all those other programs. So if you want to see your rural community grow and change, you got to support organizations like Wolfbane, because it's fun and it's fun. So
Yeah. And it's a beautiful place. Like, if you live in one of the surrounding cities, like, the drive out there is beautiful. Like, I absolutely love going out there. And there's not just that out there. Like, there's tons of other things happening. It's just people don't know of those things until people start talking about it.
And Appomattox is mostly linked to the Civil War. It's where the Civil War started and ended. But it's more than that. And they are trying to branch out and say, hey, we're also all of these other things. And so we keep joking that Appomattox is going to be the Brooklyn to Lynchburg's Manhattan. Like, we want to be the arts hub. So
Love that.
make Appomattox, Virginia, of all places in the world, an arts hub.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we will definitely have to stay connected, and I will definitely make my way out there. I know that there's lots of things that I've done. I usually start making it out that way when it gets cooler because it's really hot out there.
I
Uh,
start to change. It's a pretty beautiful place. So
yeah, but I will definitely make it out there and see one of the shows that you all are putting on. And if there's ever anything that you think I can do to kind of help promote new things coming out, feel free to send it my way. I wouldn't charge to share stuff like that. I think that that's something amazing that needs to be shared.
thank you. And I would say, well, the next show after Into the Woods, we're doing Camp Crystal Lake the musical, which is a pair, and we have a splatter zone, so the audience will get covered in blood. Come out to the woods, get covered in blood. It's gonna be pretty funny.
That sounds awesome.
It's funny, not scary. We had to tell people, because people are like, "Oh, I really want to come, but I don't want to get scared." It's not scary. It's funny.
Okay, perfect. My friend Brittany, she's like really into all of those types of things. She has like a board game. I think it's Mixtape Massacre, where like she was like, I want to be Jason. I'm gonna do this. So I think that that would be really fun to do.
I love that. Well, we do it. It's a fun one, and you get covered in blood, and that's an experience.
I mean, that's the best part. Awesome. Well, I will keep in contact, and hopefully I'll be able to make it out there. I definitely want to see Into the Woods, so I will try my best to get out there for that.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, have a good night.
Thank you.
See ya.